wasn't planning to be a professional surfboard maker, no. It was no career. Surfing was so on the fringe. It wasn't mainstream like now. It wasn't a main job, you know. I saw it on TV when I was young, even though I lived only 2 miles from Manu Bay, but I never tried. When I went over the hill to Hamilton High School, then some friends at school were surfing. They used to go to Mount Maunganui, Whitianga, Whangamata, sometimes to Raglan. And then they were going, oh yeah, surfing's great. And I kept thinking, wow, I know Raglan's famous for good surf, you know, I have to try it. And then once I started, I was hooked. And at first when I was surfing, there wasn't many surfers in Raglan. Really, they just visited for the day. Everyone lived in Hamilton or Auckland, and only a few in Raglan, just some local kids. And then the Australian guys started coming and living in Raglan. Yeah. Quite a few from like Sydney, south, down around Wollongong area. Heaps of Aussies came over before they discovered Bali. So hanging out with them, I got really more into surfing and the surfing culture and more interested in surfboards. So my first job, I thought, oh, it's going to be a summer job. I'll just learn some fiberglass basics so I can learn to fix my board. But my summer job turned into 2.5 years of full-time job. No, it was moulding work. Doing fiberglass, like gel coating molds and chopper gun work and all that industrial side of fiberglass. But I had a workmate from California. He talked my boss into getting Clark Foam blank franchise for New Zealand. So they started making the surfboard blanks where I worked. And I was the only one young surfer coming through the staff. So when the guy set up the blank operation, he had to go do another project. So he said, okay, you want to learn how to make surfboard blanks? I go, yeah. So it's yours. You've got 2 weeks to learn. I'm going. So I started doing that. I did it there for about a year, then I left. And then no one else could figure out how to do it. They closed that operation and they sold it to Super Session in Auckland. So for a couple of years I went up there and worked for them part-time, did all their surfboard blanks. I said, see you later, we're going to Australia now. And I went to Aussie for 3 years. The last year I was there, I was working with Tony Alberington and some other guys in Gold Coast. I was just sanding, making some wave skis, doing odd jobs in the surfboard factory, but getting more of a feel for this, making surfboards. Then went to Hawaii. Once again, 6-month trip, but it turned into nearly 5 years in the States. So I became a production glasser in Hawaii and California. Got to do a lot of practice with other people's materials before I practiced with my own. In the end of 1990 I came back to New Zealand. And it was slow, not like now. It was really not much work, things were different. When I left New Zealand in the early 80s, not many surfers living in Raglan. When I came back, every New Zealand surfer was living in Raglan. It seemed like. And more lately, since about the millennium, it's really, the numbers have really filled up out here. I tell you that I love you by. Well, when I came back to the States at about the end of 1990, the longboarding revival was kind of well underway in California, but there wasn't much happening in New Zealand. There was not many longboards yet. Everyone was still on shorties. And it looked like, well, I was starting to get into riding a longboard too, so I was having a lot of fun on longboards, and it looked like an area I could kind of move into with my boards. And then less than a year after I came back, I got licensed to do the Bear label from Billy Hamilton, who I used to glass for in Kauai. So that's a good label, especially for longboards. So I just started making a few, and then longboarding got more popular, and so doing more and more. And then when I came back to Raglan, and Hughesy just started Raglan Surf Company, so I started up working there. I glassed all of his boards, shaped mine, glassed a lot, and then about, when was that, 2004, that's coming up 9 years ago, I left there and went on my own, and just went up the road in that old wool shed and started making my own boards start to finish. And then about 5 years ago we opened this. We built this shop down here and opened our own, so I finally got my own surf shop, showroom for my boards, and doing everything from our own premises. And it's good. I mean, they're always, the surfers used to value the craftsmanship of the shaper, their accumulated knowledge or wisdom, to help put together the right surfboard to suit the individual. Kind of like a tailor making clothes for someone, get the right fit, so they've actually got the right board to suit them. Make the surfboard with the volumes and the curves, everything to fit the individual. But now with the modern era, it's just selling models, mass-produced models, pumping them out, and making the customer fit the model, rather than making the surfboard fit the customer so much. Anyone that's into surfing, unless some people really know what they want, others just see a board in the shop and it kind of looks alright and like the colour and I'll go for it. But if you could walk into a clothing shop and get custom made clothes for the same price as the clothes on the rack, which would you buy? So 50% of my boards would be custom boards, and the people get the boards specifically made to suit them, and then they know they're getting the right board.
I tell you that I love you by and by. I don't know if I'd survive without a friend like you.